Mr. O'Sullivan. You know what? I think a lot of ground we've already canvassed, but there are obviously things that have since arisen since the last time you were here, and we thought that we would use this opportunity to then address those. Now, just this morning when you arrived, you said SAPS is still captured. Who has captured SAPS right now, according to you?
Chairman, I've set this out in my affidavit in some detail, and I remain of the opinion that certain senior management within the police, specifically within crime intelligence, and the police commissioner himself, they have a lot of questions to answer, and I'm not Parliament, but somebody somewhere needs to be asking those questions. And the type of questions I'm talking about are set out in some detail in my affidavit. And I have gone over it already. If you require me to go through it again, I'm happy to do so. But I remain of the opinion that if you can open a docket in South Africa and 3 weeks later get warrants of arrest for 2 people or 4 people who are exposing a corrupt police chief, that's proof that the state is captured, that the police and the prosecution service is captured. And then when those people get arrested in breach of a High Court order that says that I may not be arrested, and by the way, I spent over R500,000 to get that High Court order. And the only reason I applied for that High Court order was because the dirty cops kept raiding my offices and kept threatening to arrest me, and did arrest me and drag me off planes and do all these nasty things. I was left no alternative but to get the High Court order. Having obtained the High Court order, we have video footage of this Northwest team arresting me and my attorney reading the High Court order out to them and them saying that order doesn't apply to us. And then that same night, when my attorneys go and bring an urgent application for habeas corpus at midnight in the High Court, because it's an urgent matter, the same prosecutor that was here yesterday, Michael Mashuka, he went there and told the court that order doesn't apply to him either. And they wanted to detain me. And the reason they want to detain me was as punishment to stop me from exposing corruption.
Okay, I've got the High Court order because I wanted to ask you about that. But you see why, and I don't want you to go back to your affidavit. I mean, we've gone through that at length. The problem we have, whether it's your problem or our problem as a committee, is that everybody makes sweeping statements about how corrupt criminal intelligence is. I would have thought that at least you would be in a position to at least give us some sort of evidence around this. Would you be able to do that? Do you have evidence that points to this corruption in criminal intelligence and the police commissioner?
Yeah, I have the evidence, Chairman. It's contained within my affidavit. And I mean, must we go back to it and read it? Because it's there. I've set out copious detail of how the crime intelligence Secret Service account, which I call a slush fund, has been a piggy bank for senior police officials for the last 20 years. And it's still a piggy bank. And in 2012, I've used as an example, that piggy bank budget was 98 million rand per annum. This year, it's 600 million rand per annum, which is a growth of over 500%. And during the same period, inflation only grew at 113%. And then you end up with a situation where...
And so Advocate Mashucha contends that you have contravened both the National Prosecuting Authority Act as well as the National Credit Act, and he sets out why. So I'm going to start with the National Credit Act. He's talking about your ability and consistent obtaining of personal credit information, amongst others, financial information of private citizens. Now, you are not authorized to have that information, do you?
Chairman, that's not correct. If you look at the Act, and I don't have the Act in front of me because I didn't know this question would be coming. If you look at the Act, it makes it clear that the information can be used for fraud prevention and fraud investigation purposes. Now, fraud and corruption are pretty much the same thing. Quite often, Chairman, a person is charged with fraud and corruption or just fraud. And those investigations, they are investigative tools. So there's every certified fraud examiner in the country who carries out fraud investigations, signs a code of conduct, has access to those tools.
But
they're not allowed to.
Sorry, Mr. O'Sullivan. When you were getting the personal information of Mr. Dupree, for example, General Pasha and his driver, were you investigating him for fraud?
No, Chairman, when you're doing a fraud investigation, you have to be able to find witnesses. And in the case of General Pashlani, we received information, and it was the builder of the house. His name, Frikkie de Blanche. And Frikkie de Blanche gave information that he was paid with checkers or spar bags out of the boot of General Pashlani's car. And the first payment was 350,000 Rand in cash. The second payment was 350,000 Rand in cash. So we asked him, who was the driver of the car? Actually, it was Ipid that wanted to know his details. He couldn't provide that details. So all we had was a name. And I can't remember the first name. I think it was Alvain. Alvain Dupree. So we went through the population register and got a list of all the A. Duprees. And then you can work out by looking which one of them is working in the police. And then we were able to establish that. We then provide that information to Ipid. And then Ipid decided to interview, and they asked me to go with. And the reason they asked me to go with was because they felt, this is the late...
sorry, I think
Mandla
you've answered me.
But he felt that Mr. Dupree would answer questions better to a white man than he would to a black man.
Mr. O'Sullivan, when you got then Honorable Sikhosana's information, were you investigating him for fraud?
I didn't get his information. It's a High Court judgment and it's public information. So I got a phone call the week before I appeared last time, and the phone call gave me the details. I sent somebody to Middelburg High Court, and they confirmed to me that there was a High Court judgment against Mr. Sikhosana.
But were you profiling then the members of this committee, Mr. O'Sullivan? Because I don't know why that would necessarily be of interest to you.
Well, it's not of interest to me unless somebody phones me and provides me information. So we don't profile. I don't know anything about you or anybody else on the committee. The only person I got information about was Mr. Sikhosana, and it was a phone call. They provided the information. I then decided to check it out.
But can you see where I'm going with this, Mr. O'Sullivan? It's, there's accusations that are made because of your forensic capabilities. You are able to go after private citizens, you get their personal information, and then that is used to intimidate them. What would be your comment to that?
That's absolutely not true.
Okay. I think I think Honorable Ngola has asked you your Stan Fenta and the issues of misrepresentation.
The Mr. What? Sorry?
Of misrepresentation, because it said that, you misrepresented yourself as an Ipid officer. I don't want to go back there. But I want to go to Advocate Mashukha, and this is a conversation we're having as members, that everybody sits there. You've got markedly different versions of what had happened, but in Advocate Mashukha's statement, he says there's an email that you wrote to Mzinyati, who I think was the DPP of Gauteng, if I'm not mistaken, where you said the latest criminal suspect I need to bring to your attention is Advocate Mashukha, and then you go on and on. Now, why do you refer to Mashukha as a criminal suspect, and what evidence do you have that Mashukha is a criminal?
So, the email, I don't have it in front of me, but the email would have set out the reasons why, and also would have set out the reasons why was my statement to the Zondo Commission, which is 55 pages long, and I set out chapter and verse in there. And if the chair requires, I will make that statement available to this committee through the evidence leader. And that statement sets out chapter and verse that Michael Mashukha perjured himself by lying through his teeth to the Zondo Commission and to the court.
Sorry, without going to the statement, sorry, Mr. O'Sullivan, without going to the statement, but I mean, when you say he's a criminal, can you just, is it a crime of perjury, or is there anything else that you are accusing Advocate Mashukha of?
My allegations were perjury and defeating the ends of justice.
In relation to the case that he was prosecuting you for?
In relation to his conduct in assisting the Northwest team to shut down an investigation involving General Pashlani, where the allegations were quite clear that we had a corrupt acting chief of police. Now, if you have a corrupt acting chief of police, it doesn't take long to figure out what's going to happen to the criminal justice system. And in the case of General Pashlani, the evidence against him is overwhelming. I think he's arraigned on 2 or 3 different trials. By the way, we had nothing to do with those investigations at all. That was other work that Ipid did. I had no knowledge of that. But in my affidavit to the Zondo Commission, I set out to prove that there were 5 lies that Advocate Mashukha made in order to obtain warrants of arrest. So that means he fraudulently obtained warrants of arrest for one reason and one reason only, because he was part of a conspiracy to shut down a corruption investigation.
Okay. Your High Court order, Mr. O'Sullivan, so you go to court, you say that you're being harassed by the South African Police Services, I'll assume. And you, I'm sure amongst your prayers, you ask for 48 hours notification before an arrest. Is my understanding correct in terms of what you asked the court for? I mean, I think I'm struggling to understand why a court would grant a citizen such unprecedented, in my view, leeway to say the cops cannot touch you in any matter in perpetuity. You must be given 48 hours notice. Could you take us through how that would have come about?
Sure. Chairman, this is a very simple one to explain. This took place in September. The application was launched in September 2016. Now, prior to September 2016, I had received multiple breaches of my constitutional rights by dirty cops being directed by various parties, and those parties included the then head of DPCI, Major General Clemeza, the Gauteng head of DPCI, Major General Mokotedi, and the acting chief of police, General Pashlani. Now, in my affidavit, I set out chapter and verse as to why that court order was necessary. Because the harassment, we asked for an undertaking, we were given an undertaking, and a week later, the prosecutor said, no, I'm not honoring that undertaking. I'm going to arrest your client again. So then we went to court. And in fact, we didn't ask for that court order. What we asked for was that for any alleged offence that took place prior to, and I think the date was 1st of June 2016, for any alleged offence prior to the 1st of June 2016, I not be arrested at all, but I be brought to court with a J175, which is a summons to attend court. And the prosecutor made it clear that no, he'll arrest when he feels like it. Now, that's contrary to prosecution policy. It's contrary to the rules, and it's contrary to the Constitution, because arrest is the last means to get a person to court. You can summons a person to come to court. Now, why would you arrest a person except, and by the way, there's 2 DPCI judge reports as part of my bundle. And in those DPCI judge reports, the second DPCI judge report, which they took 3 years to investigate, they found, and it's in my statement, they found that the conduct against me was a massive violation of my constitutional rights. And if you look at the letters from the prosecutors, they made it clear that the intention was to arrest at any cost. Okay. So there was clearly a conspiracy to shut down the corruption investigations we were busy with.
Okay. So, Mr. O'Sullivan, you do agree, though, that there's now the special dispensation that is created for you and arguably you alone. What do you intend to do in these 48 hours that you must be given notice before you're arrested?
Prepare bail application so that they can't do what they did last time, which is to drag me off to a police station, tell my lawyers I'm at another police station, and then hide me and put me in a place where they can torture me. And that's what they did for 3 days and nights.
So given that Mr. Ntlemeza, Mr. Pahlane, and all of them are no longer in the system, would you be looking at getting that order revoked? Would you have any objections to having it revoked?
Well, given the conduct of the police right now, I would absolutely object to it. By the way, the police launched an application to set it aside and they lost. Okay. So the reality, and let me explain to you why they lost, Chairman. They lost because they weren't able to prove that their conduct was lawful. So you cannot have police deciding, let's punish this guy by arresting him on a Friday afternoon and keeping him until Monday. And while we keep him, we'll hide him somewhere. No, that's what the apartheid police were doing.
Okay. Mr. O'Sullivan, sorry, my last question. I do apologize. I've run out of time. Will you ever get to a point where you acknowledge, if not admit, you acknowledge that in your interaction with Ipid in particular, and I think during the time of Mr. McBride, you would have overstepped what any ordinary citizen investigator is meant to be doing. You were sharing phone numbers, ID numbers, forensic details, all sorts of things that you should not be having, in effectively ingraining yourself within Ipid and Ipid machinery. Advocate Mashucha contends that that is the reason why you paid for Mr. McBride's legal fees, so that when he gets back, you are embedded within Ipid. Do you still maintain that you have not overstepped your the legal framework in which you are meant to operate as far as an investigator is concerned who is outside Ipid, because you are not an Ipid member?
No, of course I'm not an Ipid member, and I never held myself out to be an Ipid member, Chairman. And as far as making a contribution to legal fees, I didn't pay the legal fees, I made a contribution. What we had at that time is we had a captured police service, we had a captured prosecution service, and state capture was in full swing. And while
But then did you not then capture Ipid?
Pardon me?
Did you then not go and capture
No, absolutely not. In fact, the reality of the situation is that when I didn't just, by the way, make a donation towards the legal fees of Robert McBride. We also made a donation, and I know they've disputed it, but it's a fact of life, and I've got the proof. We made a donation, I think, of 100,000 rand to the Helen Suzman Foundation. The reality of it is that the only possibility of starting somewhere to uncapture a captured state, I saw we weren't going to get anywhere with trying to uncapture the police. We weren't going to get anywhere with uncapturing the prosecution service. We had an unlawfully appointed head of prosecution service, Sean Abrahams. We had an unlawfully appointed head of the police. We had an unlawfully appointed head of the DPCI. We had an unlawfully suspended head of Ipid, and the acting head of Ipid was in cahoots with the criminal syndicate that were involved in state capture. So I was quite keen to see Mr. McBride back at work, and hopefully, it was kind of the last chance of trying to do something to save this country from going down the drain. And when I got involved with Mr. McBride, which was at the end or beginning of November 2016, I took that involvement through, by the way, I was overseas for Christmas, but I took that involvement through till probably the end of January. And then I said, I've done enough. I'm stepping back. And that's exactly what happened. And if that's capturing Ipid, that is a dream. It's the opinion of the Northwest team and their captured prosecutor. And it's the dream of Mr. Pashlani. And it's the dream of Mr. Nkabindi. And if you really want to get to the bottom of things, you must try and work out how all these witnesses miraculously appeared here with this single narrative that actually Paul O'Sullivan is the head of state capture, not all these criminals.
Okay, final question. So what is your relationship now with our law enforcement agencies? Are you still embedded, my word, are you still embedded within the system? And why did you feel the need, all the way from London, I think you were at, I'm not sure, to come out and blast General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi the way that you did after his press conference? I think at some point he even sought to sue you, if I'm not mistaken.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay, first thing is your current relationship with law enforcement, and then you went out and you attacked General Mkhwanazi after his 6th July press conference. Why did you feel the need to do that? If I'm not mistaken, and you were not even in the country. He threatened to sue you, the way insults flying left, right, and center. What is it about that triggered you so much that you felt the need to do that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I answer that?
Write the question down. The time of the...
So...
No.
My problem...
Mr. Apollos.
Pardon?
The time of the member has expired. Write the question down.